Ladies and gentlemen, please stand. Join with me in the salute to our flag and country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for our prayer.
Wise and loving God, thank you for all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the health we need to fulfill our callings, and for sustaining us each day. Thank you we can be involved in this useful work, and for the honor of bearing the responsibilities entrusted to us. And thank you for the freedom to worship you. You have said in the scriptures, citizens should obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for the various city officials, and in particular for this assembled council, and I ask that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid conflicting interests and the issues of our times, a sense of welfare and true needs of our people, a thirst for justice and rightness, confidence to do what is good and fitting, and the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement. Joy in this task you have entrusted to them. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Guthrie, Oklahoma. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Call to order our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting of January 4th. Second item on our agenda is community comments, announcements, recognitions. Do we have anything, Kim? No. Item number 3 is consent agenda item A and B. A is the approval of the minutes of the December 21st Public Works Authority meeting, and B is the approval of the end-of-year budget amendment number 6, moving significant numbers of amounts of money from various accounts just as a normal end-of-year process. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Submit your votes, folks.
Oh, that's right.
See the votes. Unanimous approval from all those present to approve the consent agenda items A and B. Item number 4, consider and take action on with respect to resolution 2022-01, approving and authorizing clean water loan from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board. Leroy.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the mechanics, and then we have our bond counsel and financial advisor here as well that may make some remarks on the actual agreement and the loan process and answer questions. In your agenda packet, there was a sheet that looked like this. And in there, when we awarded the contract for the wastewater treatment plant back in the start of 21, we borrowed in 20 and 21 $8 million each year, which gave us $16 million. We had been building up funds in the wastewater treatment plant fund from our 3/4 cent sales tax. And at that time, we roughly had about 1.2 million. And we put some other funds together that took us to 17.6 million. The project was 20.6. For lack of better term, that left a funding gap, and we pledged existing revenue from fund balances so that we could issue the contract knowing that we would come back in 2022 to borrow the rest of the money, because we're limited to how much we can borrow each year. So the funding gap was $3 million, but we also talked at that same meeting about going ahead and borrowing $4 million. I'd kind of like to explain why that makes sense for us.
For what, to borrow $4 million?
Correct.
I think it's the city council bonuses.
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah, instead of $1, you're gonna get $2. Double your pay. Yeah, double your pay.
We have to put that on the vote on April 5th. Oh, your favorite thing? TV vehicles.
If you look at the sheet that I handed out, it has to do with the CIP sales tax. And on the left-hand side, you can see that that goes through 2031. And over the life of it, even at a flat rate based on our four-year average between 17 and 20, it would generate 19.5 million. And if we have a 2% growth rate, it would generate 22 million. And our sales tax has been growing more than that. It's been growing about 7% a year. So over time, it'll probably generate more than what's even projected on here. The problem is that's fine if you pay as you go. But when you're doing projects at the beginning, then you have to borrow those funds to be able to do those projects. And if you look on the right side, of course, we're putting $4 million of the CIP 3/4 sales tax in the wastewater treatment plant. Even with what we're proposing, we will still do that. But if we go ahead and borrow the $4 million, then we will up the annual payments from CIP to make up that $1 million towards the wastewater treatment plant that we committed. We have about 1.9 million balance in the CIP fund. That will cover the $1 million that goes towards the match for the Owen Field Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. But if we get the approval for the EDA grant application for, say, the soundstage, well, we'll need 1.5. So we'll have to borrow some money. So the easiest way to do this, since our SER plan is $20 million, by doing the $4 million, it frees up $1 million to match the Land and Water Conservation Grant, and we're borrowing it at roughly 1.5% interest. And then that gives us 1.9, so we can do the we have the cash on hand to match the 1.5 for the soundstage, and we won't have to borrow that money. And so it's a pretty cheap way to get those two projects. And so what we have done on the spreadsheet, I have handed you the third page back. The financing of the Series 2020 and the next page, Series 2021, were actually lower than what we originally projected because we got a better interest rate than what we had projected in our planning process. So it came in very attractive. And the $4 million we borrow now at 1.54% is still very attractive. And we would borrow that $4 million. And the process or the revenue stream that we will use, which is the last sheet of what I handed out to you. Whereas before, we were putting $260,000 each year from the CIP tax. Did you not get this sheet?
I got one.
Well, it'd help if I handed out the rest of the papers, wouldn't it?
I was looking through the agenda for it, and I was going, wait a minute.
Sorry.
All right.
You gotta watch Watch it gets the shell game going on.
I know. Watch out. Where's the key? Yeah, now I can follow you a little bit better.
And when you kept saying there's on the next page, I'm going, next page?
What we got?
Okay.
So what we're trying to do is find the lowest cost of money to do the matching for these various projects. Because clearly, the revenue stream's there, but it's gonna happen over time. And so we're doing the projects, not as pay-as-you-go, but we're doing them front-loaded. So now, if you look at the last sheet of what I just handed out, in the gray, we were doing $260,000 a year out of the CIP tax because we were putting $1 million in up front. Now we've increased that to 360. So our investment will be $3,865,000 out of the CIP. Plus, if you look on the green on the upper right, we're putting $500,000 of CIP money we got up front. So we are putting $4 million of CIP money into the wastewater treatment project. We're just doing it over time instead of up front. That frees up the $1 million to match the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Then we got to 1.9, we can move forward with the soundstage without having to borrow money for that, and leaves money to do our CIP street overlay project this year. And then if we get the industrial park grant, then we'll have to reconsider how we borrow funds for that match against future revenue stream. The utility revenue that will come from the wastewater treatment plant is $275,000. We have been budgeting every year more than that to go towards the wastewater treatment plant, so that funding is available. And then in the green, just like we did in 20 and 21, as those notes or bond issues retire, the revenue that we use to pay those will then be moved over to pay for the wastewater treatment plant. So that's kind of the funding format and the rationale of why we borrowed 4 instead of 3.
Well,
I'd be
plus
glad to-
money's super cheap.
Correct. So we're not gonna get any cheaper than 1.5%. With that, if you have questions for our financial advisor or our bond counsel, they'd be glad to address them. Otherwise, we would be ready to adopt the resolution.
Questions from the council? We have all the brains right here in the front row. This is our opportunity. Do either one of you have a short comment to make?
Bet.
You see what I'm saying?
I've done this long enough. I know if I'm looking around, looking at faces, there's not much more I can add, but the key point that was made is this is cheap money. So, take advantage of the scenario that Leroy addressed, because you obviously have a lot of capital needs in front of you. So the moving around makes the most sense for you guys. You had a 145 on your first loan, a 144 in your next loan, and this loan's somewhere in the 150 range. This is 17, 18-year money. As some of you move on and retire or have grandkids, you're not going to see this forever, but you've seen it for a while. So to get 18-year money that is at a rate, certainly now, that's lower than inflation, you're actually making the most, I think, intelligent decision as stewards of your city's money to address when you can borrow at this rate and effectively address your second mechanical treatment plant. That's a positive for the city. So, And Leroy did all the discussion as far as the details. I'm not usually in this position. I'm up and then Alan's over here and he gets to come in and lay out a very general overview. And so this is a special moment for me. And thank you, Leroy.
Well, and the beauty of this is we've been through it all with the wastewater treatment plant,
They're
16 million anyway.
Yeah.
So,
So I guess the moral of the story is that the prayers work.
yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
And
Be
so
glad
what
to
do you
answer
need,
any
Rachel?
questions.
You
Alan,
need a
have
motion on
anything-
this?
You have anything you want to add?
I'm gonna make a
Yeah.
motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes.
You saw how you're supposed to.
Unanimous approval then for all those present to move forward with the funding scenario that has been presented before us.
So you'll be adopting resolution 22-01.
I'm sorry. Yep. Yes, adopting resolution 22-01 for the 4.1 million. Item number 5, discussion possible action to approve resolution 2022-05, amending fees and changing policies in connection with our collection and disposal of solid waste.
With holidays and other activities, items 5 and 6, I did not have enough time to finish, so I'll move those to the next meeting.
Okay, we will
Table those?
table number 5 and number 6 till our next Public Works Authority meeting. Item number 7, consider approval to convene into executive session pursuant to Authority Title 23 for discussion of utility service agreements to new developments. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second, I have a motion and a second. Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
Let's see the votes. Unanimous approval from those present to move into executive session. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gone for a little bit.